Let's see. I guess maybe I can hold it. Okay. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Henry James, writer and literary icon, said, "Three things in human life are important. The first is to be kind. The second is to be kind. And the third is to be kind." Today I want to talk with you about being a mensch. And I want to talk about being a mensch in the context of civil discourse and the general atmosphere of the country and the world when it comes to the ongoing dialogue about race, class, politics, economics, and so on and so on. And specifically, I want to talk about this in the context of a college setting based on my short experience in education so far. As some of you may know, I recently began work at Loyola Marymount University as campus rabbi and director of Jewish life. And in light of recent protests and incidents related to freedom of expression, Loyola Marymount University, along with many other institutions of higher education, has re-examined their policy on freedom of expression, and I was asked to sit on the work group that looked at the policy. Here are a few things that I've learned that I feel are relevant as a member of the work group so far. One, as we know, the First Amendment is perhaps the most important part of the Bill of Rights. It protects 5 of the most basic liberties: freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom to petition the government to right wrongs. 2, the university is generally thought of as a marketplace of ideas for intellectual growth and requires students to do some difficult things: to imagine the unimaginable, to discuss the unmentionable, and examine the unexaminable. This is not an easy thing for anyone, especially college students today. And based on national conversation and temperature, I would say it is a hard thing for human beings to engage in. Number 3, campus activism in the form of student protest has long been an iconic part of American higher education as a liberating experience for young adults. How many people here ever protested as a college student? So because of a spat of recent college protests you may have heard about, for example, University of Missouri at Mizzou, UC Irvine, DePaul University, at LMU, we've had our own share of protest, a Rally for Solidarity, No Human Being is Illegal March and Rally, LGBTQ silent protests, and on and on. All of these has led to a national discussion, debate, arguments, screaming matches, an endless amount of meetings about debate, freedom of expression, safe spaces, trigger warnings, hate speech, Black Lives Matter, the BDS movement, immigration issues, LGBT issues, and more. And enmeshed in all of this, at least for us at higher education, is how millennials can or cannot deal with all of this. While we could debate this issue for a whole lifetime, the best answer I have found so far comes from the lawyer David P. Baugh, a black man and an ardent supporter of free speech. Mr. Baugh represented the Ku Klux Klan member Barry Elton Black. How come the KKK guys are always called Mr. Black? Mr. Baugh represented Mr. Black when Mr. Black was prosecuted for burning a cross at a Klan rally in Virginia in 1998. The case ended up in the U.S. Supreme Court. And listen to what Mr. Baugh said about freedom of expression in our country. I love this. The lawyer says, "No one in a free society has the right to walk around feeling comfortable or not intimidated, or to feel warm and huggy and fuzzy. In a country like ours, you have the right to say what you want to say. Well, the corresponding responsibility is you have to listen to crap that you don't want to hear." One of the scary things about a democracy is it's dependent upon an educated and intelligent populace in order to succeed, which means every idea needs to be discussed. Every idea needs to be debated. So we can decide whether or not it's an idea we want to keep or an idea we want to chuck. This is coming from an African-American man who's defending a Ku Klux Klan member. Talk about a mensch. The other person who's really formed my thinking about this, about freedom of expression, is another lawyer by the name of Erwin Shermaninsky. He's the dean of law school at UC Irvine. And he put it very, very basically. The best remedy for hateful speech is more speech, not enforced silence. Initially, one may be surprised to learn that there is no naked right to free speech in Jewish law. The reason for this glaring omission is not that Jewish law does not value speech or that Jewish law does not protect and recognize the social benefits of the free exchange of ideas. On the contrary, debate and the delicate balance between the sound majority and the perceptive minority characterize Jewish law. The clearest indication that the Talmud, that the Jewish law, supports debate is the actual document itself. Each page of the Talmud is arranged as a manuscript of arguments between rabbis of various academies debating a myriad of subjects in Jewish law and theology. The Talmudic legal system is at least as staunchly supportive of the notion of a marketplace of ideas as the American system. Jewish thought also embraces speech for many of the same reasons and much more. Jewish thinkers have often warned that speech is dangerous, so much so that the Chofetz Chaim, one of the most oft-quoted rabbis from around the turn of the 20th century, wrote that the prohibition against speaking Lashon Hara, against evil speech, is the most important commandment for a Jew to keep in the face of modern culture. The Chofetz Chaim understood the power of words and placed more emphasis on vigilance in guarding one's tongue than on any other commandment. Speech is so dangerous, one of our great Talmudic sages has said, "In all my life, I have found nothing wiser than silence." Yet at the same time, the Chofetz Chaim does not discourage speech totally and frequently states that a person should speak up, even at the expense of a third party's reputation, in order to prevent harm or financial loss. Another Talmudic sage qualified the earlier praise of silence by stating, "Do not practice false modesty," which the commentaries interpret to mean, if someone asks your legal opinion and you are qualified to answer, do not pretend to not know what to say. Indeed, the sages in Pirkei Avot and the ethics of our fathers praise the study of Torah above all else and state that the best way to learn is through debate. Hasidic philosophy takes the analysis a step further. Citing Kabbalistic sources, the Hasidic masters say that the power of speech is the power to rule. Anybody can have plans or desires, but it takes a ruler to make them happen. Anybody can think about social reform, but a leader is someone who speaks and gets others to listen to her. So why is freedom of expression so difficult? As any good rabbi does, I go to the sources. So I want you to think of Peanuts. How many people like the comic strip Peanuts? Okay, so you have Linus and Lucy, and Linus is in there sucking his thumb, has his little blankie, and he says to Lucy, "Lucy, why are you always so anxious to criticize me?" Lucy says, "I just think I have a knack for seeing other people's faults." "What about your own faults?" asks Linus. "I have a knack for overlooking them." It's perfect. John F. Kennedy offers, "Too often we enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought." And going old school, Aristotle has to offer, it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Okay, so let's see how this works. I'm going to say one thing, and you say what you think the opposite might be. So, for example, Pepsi.
Coke Zero.
Coffee bean. Microsoft.
Apple.
Donald.
Duck.
The Donald. Now, this is dating myself a little bit, but let's try it. VHS.
Beta.
And my personal favorite, tastes great. Tastes great. Tastes great. All right, so that wasn't so hard. There's nothing wrong with a little debate and friendly dialogue among friends and colleagues. In fact, the 19th century British women's rights activist Annie Besant said, "Quick condemnation of views with which we disagree is the sign of a narrow mind. The wise boy, who will become the wise man, tries to understand and to see truth in ideas with which he does not agree. Learning to disagree fruitfully, constructively, and respectfully is an essential skill, but it can be difficult, sometimes even impossible. In today's world, rhetoric in the media, online, and in person can devolve quickly into inflammatory statements and personal attacks that leave all parties feeling angry and frustrated. We don't have to agree, but we can and we must find ways to disagree productively. So as campus rabbi and Hillel director at LMU, I have the privilege of not only interacting with our Jewish students, but with the entire LMU student, staff, and faculty populations. For those of you that don't know, Hillel is the name of a brilliant rabbi born in Babylon in 110 BCE among the Jews of exile. Rabbi Hillel was regarded as a wise and thoughtful scholar, described as a humble man of a kind disposition and honorable character. Willing to learn from everyone and anyone, Hillel's personality, which combined wisdom with humility and righteousness, became a model for the generations that followed. Many of his teachings, in fact, have seeped into our lexicon, such as, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? And if I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? Hillel also taught, in a place where there are no men, strive to be a man. Now, despite the gendered terminology, Hillel is saying that it is necessary to be a mensch. He urges us to be a decent, honest person who offers gentleness and kindness in both our thought and action. Hillel reminds us that where there are no mensches, you must be one. Finally, Hillel taught, be patient and humble, and not easy to anger. This reminds us to be ready to answer anger with strength, the strength of reason, of goodwill, of patience and respect. You can have good reason for anger on behalf of a good cause and against injustice, as you should. And the justice of your cause should also bring forth the strength of others who will join you in the same fight. One way to create change, I believe, is to get rabbis, leaders, teachers, parents, coaches, children, and dare I say politicians, to start talking about what it means to be a mensch. All of us could use more time reflecting on and or being trained in the art of empathy, conflict resolution, effective communication, and teamwork. These skills demand continual practice and should be maintained regularly. You should practice being in disequilibrium, practice feeling uncomfortable, and perhaps most importantly, practice listening, active, deep listening. And so I offer this prayer. As we come together to celebrate the new year, let us acknowledge and give gratitude for our freedoms. May we pursue the biblical prophet's vision of peace, that we might live harmoniously with each other side by side, respecting difference, cherishing diversity, with no one exploiting the weak each living without fear of the other, each revering divinity in every human soul. May we struggle against institutional injustice, free those from oppression and contempt, act with purity of heart and mind, despising none, defrauding none, hating none, cherishing all, honoring every child of God, every creature of earth. Teach us, God, to treasure the differences that distinguish one person from another. Fill us with the strength to overcome senseless fear and hatred. Open our hearts to the radiance that shines forth from every human soul. Inspire us to shed our apathy. Remind us that it is our obligation to be responsible for one another. Bless us today as we embark on our journey. Fortify our sense of community that we might share our gifts with others, and open us that we may likewise be enriched with the gifts of others. Empower us to try new things, to face challenges and take risks. Keep us safe as we explore these uncharted territories. Be with us as we move forward, rejoicing with you and supporting one another. God, you have filled this world with so many good and wise people. Grant us the humility to seek out many teachers. Give us the courage to ask for help, the ability to distinguish wisdom from folly, the willingness to embrace new thoughts. May our learning lead us to insight, to reverence, to love, and to you. Ken Yehie Ratzon, may this be your will. Amen. L'shana tova. Here's to a sweet and healthy new year. And be a mensch this year.